After breaking up with your avoidant partner, you want to reach out, but you're scared of their reaction, or you're scared of how you would react. You're scared that you're going to be too much, or that's not going to be enough. This process of gaining clarity shouldn't be a gamble, shouldn't be something that you feel you can't control. In this video, I'm going to share with you the intimacy ladder, the process that I help my clients go through when they are reconnecting with their avoidant partner. Because if you've been breadcrumbed, ghosted, if it's not clear where to stand, it's important to gain that clarity. And again, it's not about guesswork. It's not about making assumptions. It's about gaining clarity, following a process, a scientific process to be fair, on how you can repair and reconnect with your avoidant partner. So let's say you're in no contact. You've been in no contact for 1, 2, 3 months. And you want to reach out because deep inside you know this relationship has a future. You know you guys broke up not because of lack of feelings, but because of a clash of attachment. Maybe you're anxious and they're avoidant, and that dynamic created too much tension in the relationship. But of course, you're scared that they will pull away. You're scared that the same pattern, the same things will happen. You're gonna get rejected again, and you're gonna feel anxious, desperate, sad, because the relationship that you want, the relationship that you hope to repair, they will break it again. And so that's why it's important to pace yourself. Rather than, because I know when you have an anxious attachment style, when you want so deeply a relationship, you want that relationship to be back to where it was as quickly as possible. We have this idea of big leaps, of big gesture. It's not a leap. It's a ladder. It's really step by step that you will be able to rebuild this relationship and reconnect with your partner. Before I move on to the next slide, if you're not sure whether you can get back with your avoidant partner, I put together an assessment to help you gain clarity, or whether it's a good idea, or whether there's a chance for you to get back with your avoidant partner. Because about 20% of people watching this video, I can tell you right away, you're never gonna get them back. This is not the right relationship for you. You don't have enough foundation. And actually, it's not so much about attachment, it's more about feelings. So if amongst those 20%, sorry to be the bearer of bad news, watching videos about getting back with them or repairing a relationship is not the right thing to do at this stage. Hopefully you're not in that case, but if it's the case, gain clarity. So have a look in the description, there's a link, it's totally free to take the assessment. Now, the thing is, obviously breakups are very emotional. The problem when we are very emotional, that we have those unconscious patterns pushing our behavior, is we shift from, okay, I went no contact because I've read somewhere, I've watched a video where I need to go no contact, but I desperately want to get back with them. And so as soon as we are back in touch, I'm going to ask about all the questions that I have, all the things I ruminated on for weeks, for months. And so a lot of people, the mistake that they make, they break no contact, they meet with their partner, or so sometimes they break no contact by sending a huge letter, a huge SMS, asking tons of questions. And then they regret because they feel like, no, it's too much, right? Too much too soon. Or you break no contact the right way. And I'll explain how to do it in a second. And then they go on a date and they can't help it to be too emotional, to ask for more. That's not the secure way of repairing a relationship. You have to visualize yourself starting this relationship anew. So let's say you go on this, you have a coffee with your ex. Assume that it's your first date. So you're not going to tell them you love them. You're not going to tell them about your plan of having kids. It's the first date. You're going to try to get to know them. Okay, that's the only thing. So obviously it's very weird, but that's how you have to apprehend this dynamic, this process. Because the problem is that if you go too big too soon, what will happen? The avoidant person will walk away with pushback. They'll feel overwhelmed. They'll feel, I can't give you what you want, because they need to be warmed up to this idea of intimacy. And so the intimacy ladder is the following. It's really about, if you have to break no contact, maybe you're in touch with your ex and it's a question of building that ladder. Or maybe you're in no contact and you want to break no contact. Don't overthink too much about what to send. It could be a very simple text, a very simple email. It's been a long time, wondering how you've been. It doesn't have to be very complex. And then you start discussing neutral chat about what they've been up to, their work, family, etc., etc. The more you have those conversations, the safer they'll feel, because they'll feel, I assume that they're going to talk about why we broke up. They're going to be very emotional. They're going to ask me things I can't really answer yet, right? By starting the process, slowly but surely, this is how you're going to create a safe, secure base with an avoidant partner, right? Because for avoidant, the security, that sense of safety, is they respect my need for independence. They respect the fact that I'm not so much, I would say, emotional intelligence, yes and no, but it's harder for them to open up. So expecting them to open up right away is a huge mistake. So you start neutral and you shift gradually. You gear up to personal share. You gear up to time investment. Maybe starting to call each other, to meet up more regularly, to assess whether they are more proactive. And at some stage, it's not the kind of makeup of breakup. You can talk about the relationship. You can talk about, what are we? What do we want? Right? So, mistake people make, they start with the secure check-in right at the beginning, where the person is not really warmed up. I don't have a better term than that. And that avoidant partner, I experienced that when I was younger. I was like, whoa, I don't know. You're asking me something I can't give you. So deep inside, I know I would like to try things out, but I don't know. You need to bring me on that journey. So the thing is, again, you function in a different way than your partner, than your ex. You need to meet him or her at some stage in that secure base. So the point is to bringing them in that secure base slowly but surely. Don't see it as testing whether they're going to get back or whether they're going to come back. You're testing how they respond, whether the dynamic is different, whether they're consistent. So that's why you need to do a lot of work beforehand, reframing how you perceive intimacy in relationship. Right? Because a lot of people who have an anxious attachment style, what they crave is intermittent reinforcement, is chaos, is the inconsistency. So it doesn't really make sense because that's not what we want in relationship, but because sometimes it's familiar. And a lot of my clients, they have a pattern of dating people who are unavailable because it reminds them of how they were treated when they were kids with their parents. So you have to break away from those patterns. Assessing how they can handle closeness. And again, the closeness when you have your first date and the closeness 3 months after you break the contact is very different, right? See it as I'm gathering data. I'm a data analyst. I'm not someone who desperately wants to get back with my ex. I'm just here to gather data. I've done the work. I'm a secure partner. I know what I can give to my partner. I've done the effort, I've made some efforts. Now, it's the only job that I have to, my only job is to assess, right? It's not about chasing, it's not about assumptions. Yes, you're gonna have assumptions at the beginning of the process, and your job is to gather the data to clear the picture. You don't want to end the process with assumptions. So the reason people have a hard time moving on after a breakup, because they have those voices in their head telling them, yeah, but maybe you should have said that. Maybe you should have done that. That's the thing you should, focusing on is I want that at the end of the process, I know I've done my part. I know I've been mature. I know I created a condition for us to be happy. And of course, us is me plus you. Me is the thing I can control. You is the thing I'm sort of assessing. If most of the time, if you do the work, if you create the secure base, your partner, the dynamic of the relationship will be different. Sometimes it doesn't work because that partner has such a fixed mindset. He has so many unconscious patterns that he or she has a hard time to reprogram, that for them, intimacy, relationship is never going to work out. So, to give you a very extreme example, but I have sometimes those examples. I had this example a few months ago. She was dating a man for a few months, had an amazing relationship, and it didn't work out. He was 70, she was 65. And his relationship history was a succession of short-term relationships. So for me, when you're 70 and you have this history of short-term relationships, the probability that this time around this person will actually feel safe in intimacy, will be able to commit in the relationship, is quite low. Right? So that's the thing you need to assess. Okay, now that I'm secure, now that I'm showing up, is this person actually changing? Sometimes they don't. We need to accept that your partner won't change. And if they don't change, if they're avoidant, they are simply not the right partners for you. Okay, and you need to accept that, and you need to get that clarity soon enough. This pacing is really what I would call a nervous system pacing. As you know, avoidance, we don't like pressure. The way we react to pressure is we pull back, we disappear, we ghost you, right? So understand that pressure, even though that's how you want to act, is counterproductive. That's why you need to have the right system to regulate your emotion along the way. Also, understand that people who have a secure attachment style, it's not that they have an ability to accelerate the process or gain clarity faster. Actually, it's the other way around. They pace themselves. So a lot of times, I have people telling me, we've been together, especially for short-term relationships, we've been together for 6 months and things went really fast. Most of the time, when things go really fast with an avoidant, it's just a question of reset things and start slowly. No wonder your partner freaked out after 8 months because you've moved in together, you're talking about you're engaged, etc., just after 6 months. They didn't know that they would react in a certain way, and you have to educate them in the fact that, okay, this is maybe went too fast, maybe it's about, again, creating another dynamic. We don't have to get married the first year. We can get to learn each other, develop a relationship slowly, right? And that's how you create emotional safety. The problem with things, when things go too quickly, is that obviously we get hooked. I say the avoidant might get hooked to this idea of relationship, and up to a point where I feel like, actually it's too much. And sometimes you can be avoidant and people pleaser. So you say yes, yes, yes. And deep inside you feel like, whoa, that's too much. That's why it's important to pace yourself when you repair. That doesn't mean that you should take a year to get back together, right? The getting back together, the repairing the relationship should be a few months. Usually when I work with my clients is 3 to 4 months maximum. Obviously, like most things in life, it's a very simple concept. The challenge is how you do it. And again, it's because it's mostly an emotional challenge, right? The challenge is you go too fast So the other day I had a client, she was pacing herself, but anytime she would meet with her ex, she would like, have a lot of list of grievances, of things that she will want to address with him, complaints, etc., etc. And she would go back to square one. So we had to do a bit of coaching on this for her to diffuse the tension with him. Or some people, that's not the case for my clients because I'm very much impatient when I work with my clients. They wait forever. They feel like, oh yeah, one step forward, one step backward. And it's been like this for a year. No, don't accept this. Because when you do this, when you accept this kind of relationship, you're putting your love life on pause. That's the worst thing that could happen. So it's about calibration of, okay, I'm going slowly, but I'm making progress. And I know there's a deadline. That's the other element I didn't put inside. The problem is, if you don't set a deadline, the challenge is a little bit like when you see the horizon, you move forward, but the horizon is still there. So you need to put a limit, right? Because the problem is that then you will become complacent and you will fail to recognize that actually the aim is not to create the condition, is to live the relationship you deserve. So if you don't have the relationship you deserve after 6 months, maybe that's time to let go. Or maybe that's time to push. Maybe you're not pushing enough. And at this stage, if you've been in that process for the last 6 months, pushing a little bit further in order to get what you need, it's not so much about pressuring and avoidance, because you've been doing the work for 6 months. Now, again, having said that, the point of pacing doesn't mean that the longer it takes, the better. Okay, that's why I think the sweet spot, again, it depends on relationships. Sometimes it's 2 months, but sometimes 3-4 months is enough. When I say it's enough, that doesn't mean that you're going to get back together, move in together in 4 months, but you're going to see that your partner is also doing the work. And sometimes it takes a long time for them to do the work, right? But there's an interim space where you're back at rediscovering yourself. As I said, new relationship, new date, as if it's a new relationship. Because in a way, your old relationship is dead. You have to accept that this relationship is no longer live, and you need to create a new one with your partner. If you want to try this, if you want my help, if you want to get unstuck, have a call with me. There's a link in the description. I'm going to explain you, depending on your situation, depending where you are, how you can build that ladder, how we can help you if you're in touch with your ex, on how to communicate, on how to support you along the way. Maybe there are elements of emotional regulation, maybe there are elements of cognitive reframing around your attachment. It's important to discuss with someone and have an overview of how you can move forward. I'll see you next time. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.